All right, I'm here with Awesome Cloud, Advent Children Cloud, Yuffie, and Tifa here. Some of the very few Final Fantasy cosplayers that's even at this convention. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
How many Final Fantasy people have you seen so far?
One.
One?
Probably about that many.
Nice.
Give or take one person.
So you guys, you never played Final Fantasy 14, right?
Oh, 14. I thought I meant 15.
No, 14.
Yeah.
You played 14?
Yes.
What server did you play on?
Bahamut?
Bahamut?
Yeah.
Is it
You
Bahamut?
just named it after Summons?
I don't think it's Bahamut, is it? It's like Behemoth, maybe?
Well, it was a Japanese server at first.
Oh, you played on a Japanese server?
By accident.
Gutsy. Do you speak Japanese at all?
No.
No? Alright. How long did you play it for?
About like 6 months.
Did you play 1.0 or 2.0?
I don't know.
Did it say A Realm Reborn after or what?
It's from Reborn.
A Realm
Like when
Reborn?
it first came out.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause they made this one, they made 1.0. It was such a horrible game, they actually made a story where they cast a meteor onto the MMO world and destroyed it and relaunched it as 2.0.
Interesting.
I mean, somebody knows Final Fantasy music because I hear Final Fantasy 9 playing.
Yeah. Right over there. They're not cosplaying it.
They're not cosplaying it, which is a shame because I love Final Fantasy 9.
So, anyways, I will ask you guys what you do know. Have you played Final Fantasy though, right?
I played at least a little bit of just about every one of them. How far I got varies depending on which Final Fantasy it was.
Okay. Have you beaten any of them?
9 and 10, which is taboo, I guess, because everybody's okay. But
Yeah,
9 is my favorite. So say what
Okay.
you will, but I absolutely adore 9 in every shape or form. But,
9 came out on Steam recently too.
Oh, I did beat Lightning Returns again.
Oh,
Taboo.
wow.
Yeah. Oh, and Crisis Core
impressive.
again.
Crisis Core was good though.
Yeah.
You can't complain.
Oh, I love Crisis Core.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore it.
Gambling your battle system's always great. What about you? Have you played
Welcome to
Final
Pokemon.
Fantasy?
Yes.
Which ones?
Pretty much like 7 and up.
Every single one? 7 and
Yeah.
up? Okay, what's the
Gutsy.
favorite?
7.
7? Fair enough. And have you played any?
I played some of 7.
Some of 7. Where'd you get to?
I went to after the horror house.
The horror house, really? Oh, the horror house. Oh, so do you guys know they're remaking it, right?
Yes.
Are you guys actually looking forward to that at all?
I guess I'm kind of like mixed about it. I mean, I'm kind of excited. I think I'm just excited for the things that everybody's like not excited about. Because they're like, oh, we're gonna change the gameplay. I'm like, everybody's like, no.
So you're not excited for what is it? Episodic that they're gonna do?
God, no. I was kind of confused by that. I assumed. I'm just praying that like there's just a lot of content. So I was like, well, I mean, there's like 3 discs or 4 discs, so maybe just each disc is an episode.
Yeah, 4 episodes. That
I
would
mean,
work, right?
I guess it depends on what they're priced at. Because I mean, if they're like priced at roughly the same amount as like $60 or whatever, then I guess you're kind of getting a deal. So I don't know.
Even if they say it's the worst game you've ever played, are you gonna buy it?
If they say it's the worst,
Yeah, because it's Final Fantasy 7.
I will wait till it goes down to like 20, like I did with like
Steam sale?
with like other 13 games. Or I think I waited on Final Fantasy like 13 till like went down to like 20. I was like, I'm in. Bam.
Nice. What about 15?
I'm like more mixed about 15.
No. Why not?
I don't like the gameplay. I like turn-based and all this like changing it. I don't like it.
I mean, now that you think about it, it's really hard to make a turn-based RPG, though, right? That
thank
grabs
you.
people's attention.
Oh yeah,
it's really hard.
Yeah, I agree. I'm one of those people that has just never been super into the turn-based thing. So for me, I'm like, yes, just let me, because I feel like constricted, you know, like I'm like can't defend myself. I'm just gonna have to keep taking hits and hope, you know, my I did enough random encounters, which nobody likes doing. So it's like,
So Devil May Cry is what you're looking for.
yeah, just turn it into Devil May Cry. Perfect.
Okay.
Not DMC, but Devil May Cry, because nobody likes DMC except for like me, but. That's because I'm not a Devil May Cry fan, so.
Well, you also like Lightning Returns. So
Yeah, exactly. So I also beat Lightning Returns. So.
Yeah. Would you play Final Fantasy if it was more action-based?
I would play it if it was not, if it was kind of like the like Legend of Zelda playthrough where you actually, you know, use it. Yeah.
More free
okay.
will.
Yes.
Okay. Have you played a lot of Legend of Zelda?
Yes. I have.
So why didn't you cosplay as Legend of Zelda today?
I've done that before, but I wanted to have a group, so I just kind of joined in.
Okay. That's the best way to do it. If you go in a group, then people can kind of recognize you a little
I
better.
had a friend that's what he did with Kingdom Hearts. I was just like,
Really?
dude, you should cosplay Axel. He's like, who the crap is Axel? I'm like, well, here's the brief biography of Axel before he had any backstory. He's like, All right, I guess I'll do Axel. He's like simple. I was like, and then afterwards he like got into it.
And I like the people who are doing the easy cosplays too, like they're coming around and it's like, I haven't seen too many Undertale, but I would have to imagine Undertale would be a very easy cosplay, right?
I think it varies.
Well, who are your cosplay as? Like now, simply the Go, so it's easy.
Who's the little undead guy? What was his name?
Oh,
Sans. I saw a kid dressed up as Sans the other day. It was probably one of the most adorable things I've seen.
Sometimes
so far.
less is more because it's easier to pull off. So
that's true. I don't know if I've ever will see more Louises around, and because it's so easy to do a Louise too, right?
Right.
But Scott Pilgrim.
Scott Pilgrim's super easy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys having time and taking, getting out of the line and everything. Thank you so much. You guys are absolutely amazing for dressing up as Final Fantasy. Please do it again. Welcome to MogTalk today. We are at Comicon in Phoenix, and we have with us two extremely awesome guests, two of my old raid members. I think I've raided with you guys for about 7 years. Does that sound about right?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. This is probably going to be the most unprofessional episode I've done so far. This is episode 65, and I'm talking to me. But we are going to be talking about Final Fantasy 14, and we're also going to be talking about what happens and why people don't play the game anymore. As we notice, some people kind of drive away a little bit. These are my two friends I played with MMOs for quite a while, but then they left. And we'll get into those reasons here. And also we're going to talk about MMOs in general, go forward in the future with what we think will be coming for MMOs. So to get started, I want to make sure I do proper introductions for these awesome people here. This is Eidyia, is that right? Is it? Okay. It's Eidyia. All right, so I'm not completely slaughtering that name.
Perfect.
All right, because I slaughter names all the time.
Eidyia. Random name I made up.
I thought it was like Greek or Roman or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's similar Greek names, but it was just a name I kind of made up, and it was a handle that there wasn't anywhere, so I just random handle, nothing really.
I mean, those are actually probably the best names because you can go to any game and put that name in, and people will recognize you.
Yeah, we switched it because it was like it was for a WoW account, and we randomly made a female priest, and so I needed a kind of feminine name, and so now later on I've switched the name down. But yeah, no one still has that name. Like even we check all the servers, no matter how many millions of accounts, Eidyia is never anywhere. But I don't go by Eidyia anymore. So
okay. And real quick, how long did you play Final Fantasy 14 before you left the game?
Oh, Final Fantasy 14. I think 2 months.
2 months.
That's a generous 2 months. It might be more like 6 weeks. 5 weeks, I mean, we'll round up to 2 months.
Yeah. Okay. Next, I'm going to introduce Cammey here. I can do Cammey. That's not hard, right? That's not hard. I didn't actually know it was Street Fighter until someone told me years after I met you. Is that pretty bad? Yeah. Okay. So, Cammey, what inspired you to actually name yourself after the Street Fighter character?
It's kind of hard to say. Ever since, I don't know, we were 13?
Yeah.
14? We had played Street Fighter. I don't know how we would stay up late night. It's the first one to 100 games wins.
Yeah.
I kind of obsessed with playing Cammey. It's just the first name I entered. It wasn't anything magical.
All right, well, that was kind of boring. That's all right. So let's go into how long you played Final Fantasy 14 before you left and abandoned.
I feel like this is a guilt trip. Like this is a
MogTalk, the guilt trip episode.
No matter what, you played it at least a few more weeks longer than I did.
Okay, so maybe 2 months and 2 weeks.
Does that round up to 3 months?
Yeah, it should. 3 months. 3 months is good.
3 solid months. In fairness, he also played it on the PS3 because he had a Mac and they did not have it on Mac at the time.
We'll get into that later.
And that was a whole special situation.
So there's a lot of technicalities that kind of led to your demise in playing that game.
Yeah, the PS3 keyboard.
I tried
just so we could talk.
It did not work.
That was really. You'd think it would be easy, but it was not.
It's
easy.
like the saddest thing to have your friends just talk to you and all this chat pop up, and you can't talk back to them.
And you try, and you're always like 7 messages late.
By the time I can type in hi, like they were done with their conversation.
Yeah. I don't know. Actually, a lot of people debate that the PS3 version is holding back the game as a whole because there's limitations with the PS3 that can't really push the game much further. So there's a lot of people who agree with you on that. But let's go ahead and start talking about the topic today. Today, again, the topic is going to be discussing Final Fantasy and its flaws with getting new players in here. And you might notice the sound might pick up as some panels are letting out. We are actually in a random hallway around some other panels because this was not very well pre-planned. So many people are walking by and looking at us like we're really awkward and weird.
The best part is that we're awkward and weird, surrounding by the most insane cosplay you could imagine. So it's kind of fun being the weird guys in white shirts.
Yeah, we look kind of out of place right now, especially since we don't really have real cosplay on.
Yeah. But we have uniform T-shirts, so I think they think we're something.
Yeah, we're part of something, guys. We're professionals here. I got a Rode mic. That means I'm professional, right?
I have a camera, man.
I have a camera lady. If you guys might not know, Carrara is actually behind the camera right now, watching us act like complete fools. But anyways, we do want to discuss a little bit about, because this matters. This actually really does matter. What drives people to play games and what drives them away from games. If they want to succeed as an MMO, they have to actually keep the players. I kind of wish we had Kindaloo.
Yeah.
Kindaloo here, because she is definitely one of the people that you have to actually get people that are in, I don't know, get them into the game, right? Kind of inspired to get them into the game.
Her primary motivation outside of, she loves the social aspect of games. In fact, like we've known her, we play Overwatch, we play Heroes of the Storm, and those are games that are not her games at all, and she plays them with us because we all play them. Mm-hmm. So the social aspect is 95% of a game for her, you know. So.
All right. So to start us off today, I'm going to ask one simple question. And I know the answer to all this, and it's really a simple answer, but you guys can elaborate as much as you guys want to. What got you into Final Fantasy XIV to start off with?
Okay, so I had stopped playing WoW for like 4 years, and then I randomly logged back in to play to see where the game was at, and they'd been like 2 expansions past that. And I think it took 1 month to do all endgame content, and it was kind of bored, and we were in our guild raid, and this is the old... And then we had this discussion. Everyone was kind of tired of WoW, and it was trying to find the new game. And someone brought up Final Fantasy XIV, and then literally within like 35 minutes, it just sort of being like, we're all going to go try this game really quick. And honestly, that was it. You know, and I have a deep love of Final Fantasy since I was a kid playing the Final Fantasy for Nintendo. And so I was like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And I knew it was different than the other Final Fantasy MMO, which was a grind nightmare, and I played it for, I think, 5 hours, realizing I don't want to do this game.
11?
Yeah, that was awful. I hated it.
Cammey, did you ever play Final Fantasy 11?
I didn't, but I watched somebody play it, and it looked pretty awful. It looked tough.
There are a lot of people who probably will completely disagree with you, which is funny. Yeah, because...
Oh, no, I say awful not in sort of a cosmic sense, but, like, it's the kind of game I don't like. There's too much grinding, Oh, and then you had to group for everything. So it's a grinding game, and you have to get groups to do anything, and it's just that combination. I'm like, I don't have the time, and it's too rote for me. So
interestingly, we had a friend who played 11, and then he stopped playing for like a year or two, and jumped back in, and that's when all the hardcore Final Fantasy people stayed. And he said it was better than ever at that point. There was way less people on the servers, and everybody who was on there really wanted to play.
Got rid of all the stupid casuals.
Yeah, I think that's might be what will happen to Final Fantasy XIV. Actually, like a lot of people who really want to play 14 are going to stick around, and all the people who get bored of the content after a while are going to go into the next new thing. And so it's kind of sad to say that, but it's probably something that's going to be really true going forward. And so we know the story. You were included in Brian. I'm sorry. Do you care?
No.
All right. In Eidyia story here.
It's not a secret identity.
You don't have okay, fair enough.
I'm going to tell you, it's kind of hard getting the names right, so you can call me whatever you want.
Yeah.
I can?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
All right, well, I might actually do it accidentally, but I'm going to try really hard for Cammey. All right. And so, you were actually pretty invested in trying to play Final Fantasy XIV. I remember you went through all the motions, like you said, on a PS3, and you did what you could to play, but it didn't really stick. Was it really because of the limitations that you were with, or?
So from what I remember, it was kind of the limitations, but I think I made it hard on myself. I was I don't remember what you call it, with the little fairy. Scholar. I was a scholar, and I had like 3 or 4 bars that I had to like switch between to do spells, and I was not that coordinated to be able to do that.
And you're doing that with a controller.
With a controller, and you had to use the left and right. And I don't know. I miss playing. I miss the interface that WoW had. I wanted a keyboard and a mouse, and I tried to get away from it, but it just couldn't happen. And then the limitations of speaking to people too. That was really tough to get over, because I would see all my friends who I was just playing WoW with like a couple months ago. They were just talking, and I had to remain silent the whole time.
And to even add to the difficulty of you saying switching to a controller, you were always the best DPS whenever you played. It's not like you're just a bad player.
No, it's just the
always
transition.
top DPS no matter what we did. You're just like, now I'm swimming under like.
It was a transition of a lot of things. You mentioned this before, that Final Fantasy XIV has a different timing than WoW does. So it's a transition of that, also to a controller away from a keyboard and a mouse. There were a lot of things that had changed. I just didn't think I was used to, and it was. The game can seem so much like a first-person game, or a single-player game, if you really want to play it that way. And I think that if you're not forced to play with people all the time, you don't get that type of social connection. I was even more distanced from it because I didn't have a keyboard. I even bought a keyboard and tried to use it, but you'd play and then you'd put the controller down and pick up the keyboard and type, and then you couldn't do anything. It's kind of rough.
Yeah, and then I would go in and mess with it just to be like, it can't be that hard, and yeah, it was that hard. It's just.
But you had mentioned that there are people who are really good who play on the PS3.
Yeah, there's actually, I know some really good scholars who play on PlayStation 3, actually, and everyone's amazed by that fact. So it's not like an uncommon thing. It's like, oh yeah, people can do it, but it's like, someone juggling on a unicycle. That's still pretty good, all right? You're not going to downplay it because people can do it.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you guys are wondering why I'm being really awkward and leaning over Eidyia here with my elbow to get close to Cammey.
You're making it really awkward. But now that we're talking about it, it's not awkward at all.
No, it's not awkward at all. Because the lav mics didn't exactly work out the way I wanted them to, but I kind of like this.
I like it. It makes you seem like a game show host or something like that.
A game show host, yeah.
You just need to be a little skinnier.
This is skinny, man. Look at this.
It's talking like maestro skinny.
Yeah.
Like the maestro sticks.
Like a chopstick?
A little thicker than that.
Okay, a little bit.
Like Family Feud.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it. It's okay.
All right. So we talked a lot about what veered you away from it. Eidyia, what veered you away from?
Actually, in fairness, it's had nothing to do with the game really. So when we were playing, we were all leveling kind of at the same time, and I travel a lot for my job. And I remember we played a little bit, and there reached a point. How was I traveling like for 4 months? And then I just didn't play, and when I came back, I didn't have much time. So that's a game I can't play, like traveling. And I just got away from it. And then when I came back, like everyone seemed too far, and then it just, I don't know. It was weird because I actually really liked the game. I mean, it's one of those things where it just gets away from it, and you're like, oh, that's like a book you read halfway through, and for some reason you just stop reading it and you put it down, and there's no good reason, and then you're like, I love the book, I never finished it, I don't know how it happened. So, but
you know what's really sad? Like Heavy Arms, he maxed out to 60. Like he went all the way to the top level.
Blasted through. Yeah.
And it was
ignored every story point. Like we were really concerned with the story, and we lived together, and I would get to a point and we'd run in the room and be like, did you get here? He's like, no, I'm not there yet, and you hit that level cap where we would level just to get through story, and then we'd be like, crap, we hit the main storyline, then we'd have to go level to get through the story. Where like Heavy Arms just blew through it all, and you're like, what's the story? He's like, I have no idea.
But that was one of the cool things about Final Fantasy.
Loved it.
I mentioned, you can play it like a one-player game if you really wanted to, which was really cool. And then you actually pay attention to the story, which in WoW, I never paid attention to the story. Who cares? It's just quests everywhere, and you just click on it and do it. But this was a little different, and I liked how it had were they primals is what they called them.
Yep.
Like, so you went through the game, and they had like these little boss fights, and you kept going through. I don't know. I thought it was really cool, and how they flagged quests that were part of the storyline and which ones that weren't. I think it made it a little bit more interesting. So there wasn't anything really negative about the game. There's no reason exactly why I stopped. I think it's kind of what he said. I think you get to a point where everybody's kind of ahead of you, and it's a lot of work to get there, and it looks overwhelming, so you just move on to something else.
Yeah, that's actually the biggest point. MMOs feel like work, to some degree, and if you fall behind, you just feel like there's a mountain to catch up on. Well, even like we were playing WoW, we were always top line server, top everything, and you still always like when you log off, there's other stuff to do and other people are catching up, and then it just feels like competitive in a way that's not fun, and you always feel behind, which is always, I think, is a limitation of an MMO, unless it was, I don't even know how you would do something where you just, all those like carrot rewards and leveling systems aren't a part of the game, because the game is always happening when you're not in it, and like I came back and everyone was so hard, and I'm like, And I remember logging in one time and playing for about an hour, and then it's like it felt lonely, but not because no one was on the server, but because everyone was so far ahead, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to put in 200 hours to catch up. Fuck, that's a lot of hours. When we sit down and look, do our /play, and you're like, wow, that's weeks. No deal, and there's somehow you feel like there's a small amount of time. I don't know. So.
Well, I think that I enjoy the social aspect of an MMO.
Oh yeah.
But there's nothing like when we first were playing. It was like something so brand new, and even when we were playing WoW and we did Kara, it was something that, it was low tier compared to what some of the top guilds were doing, but it was a big deal to us, and it was so new and interesting. I think we're always kind of just looking for something else to have that feeling again, in a sense. And I thought that Final Fantasy did that a little bit, but really it's kind of the same MMO. So I don't know if there's another MMO that I'm going to jump to that I kind of can relive that feeling again. It's all just going to be a lot of grinding and getting to the same end raids, and they might change the mechanics a little bit here or there, but in a sense it's going to all be the same thing.
Yeah, that actually is an extremely fair statement, and we'll get into that a little bit more later too. One of the things I wanted to ask you for this segment is actually real quick, is there anything that the game could do to get you back into it? Like if they did anything to make you go back into the game. And again, we were talking about this whole guilt trip thing, right? I'm trying to get you guys back into it, but it's just not really. I'm doing a show.
I know one thing they can do. They can make giving them money easier. If I want to play and give you money so I can play, don't go through 30 websites that I don't understand, and maybe I paid right or something.
Oh, that was such a pain in the ass. I remember it being easy for me because either I just fell down the right holes just right. So his wife, she wanted to, after we were all playing, and she's like, well, I want to play too, and she's a gamer. That was a nightmare. We couldn't give him the money. Like, it took 45 minutes of three of us trying to figure out how to navigate through the website to log in, to pay. None of it makes sense, and we finally figured it out, and I just want to give you my money. Yeah. I just want to give you my money. Come on.
And it's really depressing because I think that's just something where the translation got lost coming from the Japanese side to the American side, North American side. It just, for some reason, the whole system just fell apart.
Site is a disaster. It might have been fixed now, but that was one of the most horrible things I've seen. Like, to actually not even think it was a fully functional site for a major company, so.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll jump back into the other question here in just a second. We got to take a small break, and we'll be right back. I'm here with Squall. Yeah, and so, but this is the Kingdom Hearts version, not the Final Fantasy VIII version, right?
Yeah, it's the Kingdom Hearts version. He goes by Leon because he like gets so angsty about not being able to protect his home planet that he even just gets rid of his own name. It's, you know, because Squeenix.
So, what's the major cosplay differences between the two characters, really?
Well, in Final Fantasy VIII, Squall had a bomber jacket with like white fur around the top because they Square had figured out how to get more out of the PlayStation 1's original hardware. So they were like, well, let's just give him like fuzz on the top of his jacket because we can actually render that now. But in Kingdom Hearts, his hair is longer, which is about at my length now. He's got like kind of like a crop top overshirt thing with the same emblem as his like pendant that's usually on the gunblade on his arm, and like 10 more belts.
Okay, yeah, lots of belts then.
All the belts.
You got 2 belts, right?
I got 3 technically.
3?
1 on my actual pants, 2 here. I had a couple on my legs, but they kept falling off throughout the day, so I just got rid of them.
Yeah. All right. So you said you were excited about Final Fantasy 15, though, right?
I actually am. I mean, I pretty much call it Japanese GTA because that's kind of what it looks like. But it seems like they're going to take more risks than they have in the last couple titles. 13 was really disappointing for me overall. It just wasn't my thing. I respect it as it's a good action RPG, but that's not what I'm looking for. But I think Final Fantasy 15 is going to bring back a more interesting story. I think they have a lot of potential to do cool things with the car, with the I forget what it's called, the Noctis or something. I don't know.
I actually don't know myself.
But I think the new game is gonna, because the directors have talked about it a little bit. They're like, we know that we haven't sold that well in the last few years. We have to step it up and really impress people again and get people back into Final Fantasy. So I'm giving them some of my faith and my trust.
That being said, what about Final Fantasy VII being episodic on the remake?
I think they're lying about the reason why they're doing that. They're saying because it's an issue about disk space, because each episode will be a full game's worth of content, but I don't think so. Like, those are Blu-ray discs, man. Come on.
Yeah, it's gonna be kind of rough.
But it does look really visually pleasing, so we'll see what happens. Not a big fan of them ditching the turn-based combat, but that's just me.
Yeah, you know, in today's MMOs, it's kind of weird to get turn-based. I mean, that's more of like a mobile thing now almost, or like a Game Boy thing. It's hard to like get it on like a console.
Yeah,
but
except Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest stuck their feet in on that one, and they're still doing it. So I can't complain much. I'll just go buy a Dragon Quest title if I really need turn-based combat.
Fair enough, to segment 2, where we will actually be talking about MMOs in general instead of just Final Fantasy XIV. Today we will be talking about I'm thinking about MMOs of today and MMOs of past, because we kind of want to look at the history, because it's changed a lot since we actually did this, or since we started playing Final Fantasy XIV for the first time. So my first question is, where were you, because this matters a lot. When I've talked to a lot of people about what got them into Final Fantasy XIV or MMOs in general, what got you guys into your first MMO? Where were you at in your life? What was going on?
Wow.
It's a hard one.
We first started playing, I started playing Star Wars Galaxies.
That
was the first MMO.
Is that the first MMO before WoW?
No, the first one that I played.
Yeah.
EverQuest was before that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's not the original MMO, but that's the first one
Right.
I ever played too. Yeah, Star Wars Galaxies.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really, really
Yeah,
bad.
that's way before WoW.
Actually, Star Wars Galaxies had a cool concept because it was they were trying to have like a self-sufficient economy. So you would have like one gunsmith, and that gunsmith was an actual person, and they made all of the really valuable guns that you could buy for your class. But if that person just wasn't on, then you didn't get your gun. You couldn't buy it from them. You can go to a shop, but there's nobody there, so you're like, that sucks. It was a good idea. Or there was like someone who was like a dancer, and they would just be like in a cantina just dancing, and that was their class. They just
That was like
danced
the way
the whole
you
time.
healed. You had to
Yeah.
go to the cantinas where they dance and then you'd heal.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars. Yeah.
It would just, it's a cool idea, but it just didn't work. And most of the quests were going around and shooting little like
There were
nests. It was kind of
no quest. So originally, I was a really hardcore Star Wars fan, and the idea of an MMO I hated. I legitimately did not like. I don't like the idea of open content. I love story, and there doesn't seem to be much story. So the way I was sold Star Wars, like I guess before it was even released, was there was no going to be like player generated content. You know, like I was going to be like a smuggler and a pilot, and then I would handle some, you know, material. How you would all coordinate it together because you had the whole separation between the Rebel and like the Alliance versus the Empire. And I really liked the idea of being like a smuggler. Like that's going to be fun until you actually play the game, and it never works out like that, you know. And all you did was shoot rock piles, because the way they had this really weird system back then where they had mobs and they were all sort of tethered around these anchor points, and you'd have like, I remember the beginning, like bunnies, angry evil bunnies, and there'd be these rock piles, and even though you would move to new zones, it was always centered around this rock pile, and you'd kill like the mobs around it, and then you would kind of take down the anchor point, and then you would clean it up because someone would give you some dumb quest. And it didn't take long for that to feel stupid. You're like, I'm shooting a lot of rock piles. And
It was like that.
it was legitimate. It was really like that. And I know it changed. And honestly, there was weird things where I would play fantasy games, and even though it'd be like a boar and I would attack it with my swords and you'd miss, somehow it wouldn't feel stupid. But when I would have a rabbit right in front of me and I would just miss with a gun, I just felt really dumb. And I remember in there was a class like the Masters of Terras Kasi, and an ATST ran in, and a guy came out with like brass knuckles and punched it, and it knocked it down and destroyed it. And like, that just feels stupid. Like,
I don't know. That kind of feels awesome.
Right. I actually think it is kind of neat, but at the time, I just didn't gel right for me. But there was no content in game. Like, you just grabbed random quests and destroyed rock piles. That's like what it felt like the whole game. And it didn't feel, and in fairness, it didn't feel like Star Wars, you know. Sorry, I just went really long on that.
No, that was good. That was real good. I actually want to know, how old were you guys when you first started getting into MMOs?
Oh my gosh. How old were we, like early 20s?
21? Yeah, 21.
Okay. So that's not actually too bad. I got into MMOs when I was 12. I played a really crappy MMO called Tibia. It's probably one of the worst MMOs that ever existed, but it was free at the time, and it would run on really bad computers. So that was a really good market for me. But what got me into it was kind of the whole concept that I could be at home and just run around and be cooler than I was in real life, I guess. I don't know. It was kind of like one of those concepts. And I didn't, you know, this is me thinking back on it. That's not what I thought when I first got into it. But, you know, you could instantly get in there and you could be good at something, and you didn't have to deal with any kind of social awkwardness or anything. At least I didn't feel like I had to. And people would come to you when you were, I don't know, a higher level, and they're like, "Come, please help me." And, you know, I mean, that felt kind of good. You don't really get that when you're younger, I guess. So that might have been different for you guys than it was for me. And again, this is all retrospective. I'm sure when I was playing, I was like, "Oh man, this is cool! Yeah, this is a fun game." But it really was something a little bit more intense than that, I think.
Yeah, when I was in high school, a friend of mine played Ultima Online, and I think, isn't that like the original MMO?
One of them.
Arguably, yeah, like the founding fathers of MMOs. And he was really into alchemy, and that's all he did was he just made potions and he undersold them, and he kind of treated it like an early market. And I thought it was the most boring thing ever. Like, I'd go to his house, we had a lot of projects together, and he would always just make and sell potions. And I had a really bad distaste in my mouth for MMO. And I knew about EverQuest, and I knew about in the beginning when it was like EverCamp, when you had permadeath and the way that no one did anything because if you died, you were done. You know, and talking to and part of it had to do, I think, with him, because no one did anything. I was like a crafting game. Like, no one, I was like, do you go to dungeons? Yeah, some people do that, but we don't really do that here. I'm like, I just don't understand this. Like, I want to go out and quest and adventure, and I don't know. And so I actually was kind of adverse to MMOs for a while. So at that point, 97? Yeah, so it took like 4 years before I would even begin to do that. And that was the Star Wars property. If it was Star Trek, the thing I told you I fell in love with Star Wars, like, got me into it, if you told me that was Star Trek, I would have not cared. Like, just got in.
So, I mean, when you first started playing it, did you play it because you thought it was fun, or was it because friends were around and playing it, and it just kind of got you into it, or what?
I think it was the idea of talking about the social content. Like, we had a friend who played, and we didn't think it looked very good. Yeah, we kind of made fun of it, like shooting bunnies and missing on the ground. It was like, how do you miss them? They're at your feet. It was actually that story that I read about the content of the smuggling, and I'm like, I want to try this. And then we kind of all bandied and talked about it, and we're like, let's all get it, and we'll try it. It wasn't too expensive, so.
Yeah, I think I just jumped into something that was new.
Yeah.
I don't think I was never concerned about MMOs. Actually, you were kind of talking like it was like almost an escapist thing for you.
Oh, yeah.
I never really felt that. I escaped into like books and things like that, but not an MMO. I was in it for the competition for the most part. I mean, I was...
Really?
Yeah, I really got into theory crafting with my mage and, when I was playing WoW, and I really wanted to try to be the best I could with the gear that I was able to have. It got really... I'd make sure I was always on top DPS and whatever I did, and if I didn't, then I got really frustrated. I had to practice more or something.
Yeah, you guys were talking about how you guys used to be really, really big into like Super Mario Kart racing. And like, you would always just try to beat your ghost and everything else, and you guys were pretty hardcore into it.
We played a lot of that, yeah.
We were incredibly hardcore into it, and we used to take like our other carts and race against our times. And I remember Nintendo Power came out with like the top scores they had in their magazine, and our separate carts beat every score in the entire magazine. We're like, oh, yeah, okay. Super, super competitive, where there were nights where we would do just Ghost Alley 1 and literally race it 150 times in a row, just back and forth, like the same race, like super, super competitive.
Yeah, I think we're all...
And then it would be done, be like 75 wins to 74. Be like, yes, all right, we'll call it here. So.
I think we're secretly competitive. Like, I don't think that you would, like, hang out with
I'm
us
outwardly
normally.
competitive. Like, if you know me, you know I'm not a quiet competitor. I'm probably better now. But, like, he is always the humble, quiet, I don't really care. And then, it turns out has, like, a level 100 passion for being competitive. He's just not loud about it. Like, when I go mad, I hit stuff, and I show my enthusiasm a lot more than he does.
Yeah, and
which works for his wife. His wife's the same way. Oh, I'm not competitive, and turns out she'll kill you to win.
I remember Sushi Go.
Yeah. And that game is meaningless. She will throw you under every bus possible to win. Love the girl.
So do you think if they made MMOs like more competitive in general, just like found little outlets for it, it would increase the population? No?
Not for me, because I play Heroes of the Storm a lot now, and I used to play League of Legends, and part of knowing being competitive and being good requires practice, and I know that I just can't, because it's like that work. It's work to be really good and to put in all that time, and so the more competitiveness actually is a detriment for me. I'm not into that anymore, so I'm still competitive, but that wouldn't, like, this is only competitive only, I wouldn't like that actually at all.
Okay. Well, we mentioned that when we were on the break, so either you have a MMO that's really competitive, so it takes a lot of grinding, it takes a lot of time and work, and you get a lot out of it in the end, but it's a lot of work. Or you have something that's really casual, and then there's really no substance to it. Everybody gets there. You have a 12-year-old kid who instantly is where you are in 2 days, and it feels like you kind of lost a lot there. So I don't really know if there's a good balance between the two, and because I can't see that balance, I don't know when I'm going to go back to an MMO, because it's just too much. I find myself migrating a little bit more towards like independent small games and things like that. Some of those I get a little bit more joy out of.
Yeah. So games that can kind of like take your attention and it has like an end to it, or something that you can kind of do yourself without requiring other people, or if you were doing quick games like Overwatch is, like it's a quick game that you can play with people and jump out of at any time and people can still have fun with. That kind of market is actually probably going to be more successful than MMOs going in the future, you think?
I don't know. I don't know if I need an end to a game. I want some type of closure in a sense, but I don't need there to be a definite end to it.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I mean, if any MMO I would want to play would be Final Fantasy XIV, because when I actually play a lot of games, the thing that Final Fantasy has going for it, I love its atmosphere. I still remember, like, every time I would rezone and the music, it's just so good.
It's a beautiful game.
It's incredible, and it's gorgeous, and, like, even the mechanics. I played a Dragoon back then, which was the most movement class, but I loved it, and I loved that kind of work. And And I actually really like that I didn't feel like I was in an MMO, because like the general chat was so quiet that I would forget like I wasn't playing a single player game. But we had our guild and we would talk, you know, and I actually really liked that. Again, it's a limitation of the MMOs that there's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, you know. Like I just played Hyper Light Drifter. You know, this new game came out and it's very Zelda-esque. I put 10 hours into it, and there's a lot more to do. And I loved my experience, but I don't feel like I'm gonna have to put in 200 to get the full experience, which is great. I mean, there are books that are 1,000 pages, and that's awesome because that's 1,000 pages of what you want. But sometimes you're like, that's terrifying to some people, you know. And
so I guess another question I could ask is if they made it easier to get to the end game part of the MMO, would that be a no? You don't think so?
So define easier, right? Is it gear check? Is it skill check? Like, where is that easy?
They just increase it, kind of like when you increase EXP, you double the EXP gain you got. You just get to the end part of it faster.
No, because for me, honestly, that always feels like a cheap check. I wouldn't mind if it was harder, like actually harder, where gear was less an issue, and as opposed to skill. But when you're dealing with MMOs, you need a lot more casual players in there. Like, I don't want to know I have to grind for 10 hours to get gear to go do something. I legit hate that now. Like,
I just don't think we have the time anymore. When we played WoW, we had time.
Oh, yeah. It was easier to make the time.
It was. It was way easier.
Even though we were in school and you were in grad school and, you know, and having full-time jobs.
You just find time. I don't know. You become an adult, you got responsibilities. You just lose time.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So, I mean, I guess the next segment that we need to get into will be the future MMOs, and we'll get into, I guess, in a moment. But you were also talking earlier, before we ended the last section, kind of things that you think get people into MMOs, and it was people, right? And just like, is that the only thing that can really get people into it? Like, I mean, Final Fantasy 14 right now, you can pretty much play it by yourself all the way up until max level. Is that a good thing, or is that, do you need to, I mean, going back to your point where you say people are really far ahead of you, if you had to get other people to help you get to that point, would that be a bad thing?
I would argue the way MMO's niche is the socialization and the way you have to do groups. That's its thing, which is also, there's going to be negative drawbacks to that. But yeah, it's the socialization of it. I mean, because the way you have to interact with so many other games, like, well, there's Journey. Like, Journey is a perfect example of a game that you have to interact with, you don't have to, but it's there, you know, and it's such a minimal interaction, but the way you have to interact is actually, like, it enriches the game to such a level that you would never think possible, and it's so simple. But if you take away the, you know, socialization of MMO, you just have a really tedious long game. Hell, that's probably most mobile gaming, actually, is really like that. Just really tedious, really comprehensive, and requires a shit ton of time, you know, and those, I don't know how many people play mobile games and feel, you know, spiritually inclined, but MMOs, when you love them, they're deeper than your baby. I mean, they're like family. They mean something to you, you know, and that's going to probably be tied into how they're deeply, you know, well, hell, we're friends because of the socialization of the game.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's something I also wanted to talk about. You know, I would have never met you guys if we didn't have WoW. I would have never known you guys, and you guys have been amazing. Some of the best friends I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know.
That's actually things I loved about MMOs, right? So you would run with people, and you knew people who were selfish. Like, they would gear drop. We used to fight all the time. You take it, you take it, you take it. And then you take the core traits that we were, and they get exaggerated in these, like, vacuums of these social spheres. And then you meet people who are nice and aren't selfish. And by the time you meet them in real life and you know them, you're like, oh, this is who this, we already know who this person is. And you know who people to avoid. Like, he's a loot hoarder, and he really is petty, and he rage quits over the stupidest shit. You're like, he's probably worse in real life, you know? So, yeah. And by the time, like, everyone we've met in real life from MMOs, they were the exact people you thought you would meet. Like, they were exactly who you thought they were, if not better, you know?
Yeah, I think that I would play, maybe not another MMO, but I would play another game that had a social aspect to it. You know, just if all of us played it again.
You know, that's kind of turning into Overwatch right now.
Yeah,
But the problem,
I don't want to talk about how bad I am at Overwatch.
I actually don't think Overwatch is a social game. It just happens to be a game we play at the same time. Because other than, like, they actually have a really good audio channels that we can all dump in, but the communication's really light, and it's going to get heavier once, like, people get really familiar with the game. But it's not a social game. It's like something we happen to be playing together, you know. So.
Yeah, there was I I don't know. The thing I liked about an MMO is us being together and rallying together to be able to defeat a common goal. And in Overwatch, you kind of have that, but you're also limited on the amount of players. So we have more than 5 friends who play, and you just can't do that.
It's like, oh, sorry, our team's full.
Yeah, no, that sucks, and that kind of, when they used to have 40-man raids in WoW, and before that, in EverQuest, you need hundreds of people to beat a boss. Right. And they just start shrinking it, and if you have more than 10 people in a raid, it seems like kind of excessive, right?
We always had that problem in WoW. Like, the 10-man raids were perfect for us, like perfect. And then the 25-man raids, we had to start making we were on a small server, so we had to make compromises, which you always do. With people and everything, we're always short or too many. But 10 was kind of perfect to rotate around for our group.
Person who would flip in and out.
Yeah, but it's also why big raid groups, they never stay together because they're so hard to manage that, the socialization of keeping those things together. There's so many moving parts. I don't know how Vanilla did it with 40 people. My God, 25 was hard enough.
Yeah, I mean,
it was
people.
Work when we would raid lead back then. It was work.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to account for people disconnecting, not being able to stay in there. Everyone's getting a potion, someone's going around. I mean, you have to have a machine working to make that thing happen. And I think that's actually going away with MMOs that I can see at least. But all right, well, I think this is good for this section. We'll be back here in just a moment, guys. Hold tight. You've played a lot of Final Fantasies. How many Final Fantasies have you played so far?
I've played 1 through 10-2, Tactics, the other Tactics. Played 12, 13, 13-2, and that's where I've stopped off.
Okay, that's actually pretty deep in there,
Those
man.
are all the original 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So.
Are you going to do 15?
Yeah, absolutely. If they have the same kind of battle play that Crisis Core had, which I totally got into, I'll definitely do that. I'm a turn-based guy for sure, but the Crisis Core battle play was awesome, and if they have that same in 15, I'm going to dig it.
That Crisis Core probably had one of my favorite endings at all, the Final Fantasy. It was like you were in that moment, man.
Went out with a bang, yeah, for sure.
I mean, I love it. So I also want to ask you, which one's your favorite if you had to pick one out of all the Final Fantasies?
That's tough. That's hard. 4 is awesome. Or 2 here was great with Rose and Kane and Cecil. 7 obviously is a classic. 9's really cool too. But 6 or 3 here, but 6 that's my it's the most nostalgic for me. Growing up, that was it. And so I'm going to be cosplaying as Sabin, the warrior monk, next year. I gotta gain a little weight first before I do that, and I'll be doing that one.
So how many do you change your cosplay every year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I add to it as much as I can. So I do a black mage from FF1. It's basically a Snuggie and a ski mask. Yeah. I've got Cloud here. I do Natsu from Fairy Tail. I've done one of the handlers from Gunslinger Girl. And then I'm going to do a Full Metal Alchemist Edward Elric tomorrow. That'll be the first time I unveil that one there, so I'm pretty stoked on it.
Man, that's awesome. So what do you do with all the cosplay stuff after you're done with it?
My wife and I, so she cosplays as well, so we have a room in our house that's all cosplay, all of our outfits, all of our wigs, all of our weapons and everything. It's all just in that room.
Man, that's absolutely fantastic. And by the way, I got to say again, you're probably the best Cloud I've seen all day, man.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right, so welcome back to Section 3 here. We're actually going to be talking about the future of MMOs and where we think it can go in the future to get people like these two guys who can't seem to stay to any MMO right now at all. I don't think so, except for maybe Final Fantasy 14 if something ever happened with that. But so let's talk about right now, we're going forward with the future of MMOs. Where is the future of MMOs heading towards? Do you have any opinion on that at all?
As a qualified expert on MMOs, I don't know. I mean, because there's, like, I've moved out of the kind of demographic that can play them and like to put in the time, you know. Like, I still game a lot, and I play a lot of smaller games. I play some longer games, but I don't MMO very much. Because you kind of have to dedicate it. Like, when we played WoW, I mean, I look back, I mean, that was years. That was it. That was the only video game I played, you know. And now I play, you know, a couple different games a month, so. Okay. Where do I think it's going? I'm not sure. I think it's probably becoming much more hybridized and smaller. I mean, things like, Destiny right? I mean, you have a first-person shooter that became an MMO, which sounds silly, but you're like, actually, it's probably really late. They should have did this a long time ago. And the way that they've done first-person MOBAs now, I think it's just going to become, I would expect to become more niched and specialized within the genres of different games, you know, so.
Sounds good. What about you? You got an opinion on it?
Yeah, I don't really know where they're going, but as far as like the interface, it seems like everybody's just trying to do the best thing after WoW. I mean, if you look at Final Fantasy and several others that came after WoW, the interfaces kind of stay about the same overall. That's why it's easy to switch from one to the other. So I don't really know what they have planned out there. I don't know how else it can change. We were briefly talking about virtual reality over the break.
You like that sound, by the way, that's like coming up in the background?
I do.
I wonder if it's bleeding into the mic. That would be pretty interesting.
Well, we can hear it. I know it's hearing it.
Maybe. There's a high possibility to it. I kind of like this right now, being in the middle, guys, because it's like I get to turn over here and I'm like, oh, I want Cammey now. Oh no, I want Eidyia now. Oh. So it's pretty awesome. So Final Fantasy's taking this approach where they are kind of catering towards like sort of a casual crowd. Like they have 4 to 5 bosses, up to 6 per 6 months that are introduced to the game. It's not a lot of really hard content. I mean, there's more, but it's not hard content. They have lots of easy kind of steamroll content that you can eventually do. At first, it might be a little bit difficult to do with a group of random people, but when you get further into it, like a week later, you just go in there and just kind of AFK through it all. So, what do you think? Yeah, nice. It's good. But what do you think about MMOs going towards a more casual crowd? Is that something that you see going forward in the future?
No, because casual defining, that's all gamers are casuals, you know. And so when I was saying I think it's going to get niche, it's going to find. So like when WoW came out, gaming was in a spot. There wasn't a lot of MMOs, but WoW took the best pieces of everything and made a game. We kind of forget that WoW. I remember when we first heard they were coming out, like, really? Blizzard's doing this? It's going to fail. And they took over everything. And then they became this giant of the world, and then everyone started copying it. So, take Kingdom of, I was to say, so, if you ever played Kingdom of Loathing, it's effectively an MMO, and it's this very specific, like, you know, hilarious writing base that sort of makes fun of traditional RPG and tabletop gaming. But it's funny because everyone's in an audience. It's really low budget. It's really pretty easy. And everyone who plays it loves it, right? So it found its niche of people, and it caters to them. So, like, you know, then there was the people who love hardcore WoW. Like, they just had to shut down the original vanilla servers because there were so many people playing. It became so big enough that it became an IP problem for Blizzard, you know. But we know those people are there. So I think saying we have to go casuals is the same thing like we have to make a movie that everyone in America watches. And to dumb that down, you're probably going to get something bad. And so instead, but you know, and how much money they put into their Blizzard properties, like they have to make the money back, so they have to have so many people play it. So I just think they're just going to find the niches of gamers they want, you know.
Well, yeah, and
to satisfy where they need. I mean, we also forget these are games to make money. They're a company, so they need to balance that. Like, big budget game, where are they going to have to bring in casuals, you know?
I mean, that's a really interesting point, too, because a lot of people hate it, the pay-to-win, like you can buy stuff to get items into the game kind of atmosphere, but that really has saved probably a lot of games, I would think.
A ton of games. I mean, there's a lot of stuff where they found, like a League of Legends, it's a free game. The average person who plays it spends something like, I'm going to say like 45 or like 112. You're like, holy shit, like it's a lot more money than people would think.
Game with the spaceships.
Star Citizen?
Yes.
Star Citizen.
Yeah, that's still
example.
in like beta. People are spending intense amounts of money on that game.
Like the average person spends hundreds of dollars on a game that's never come out. That's technically.
I totally had the mic over there for a second.
Oh, it's technically free to play, right? And it's. I feel like that's where a lot of them are going. You know, like Overwatch is now at that spot. You buy the whole game, but the microtransactions are for vanity stuff. You know, and if you really care about that, you're going to spend a ton of money. But a lot of people do. We already know people about boxes. And you're like, you know, they bought the game and then they add them up. But, you know.
And you're right, it could be about niches. But it does seem like a trend that MMOs have is they start off where it's a difficult game. People have to invest lots of time into it. And then once that immediate first I don't know, initial boom happens with their business, they need to go casual because they need to get more people in quicker because they need more money, and that's the easiest way to do it. So it depends on how they design it, and I think you're right, it is that balance, where how casual do you want to make it to be able to get the right types of players in when you release it?
I think there's another issue. Games, like, so even when I was a kid, games are pretty expensive. Like, you would get a few games, like at the Super Nintendo era, every game was like $50 to $70, like, towards the end. But now, I mean, between all the Steam games and even, PlayStation 4 games aren't that expensive. That games are so much cheaper that there's just a glut of access to games, and I think of the $15 a month. That sometimes is a pain. Like, you know what? That might be the one main thing. I'm like, I don't want to pay a game every month knowing I have to play it. Compared to where we talked about that when we bought. If Final Fantasy was $200 and I had it for life, I would have paid it on the spot. I would have paid $200 right out of the gate.
Really?
Yep. Because we know we're going to play that length, but it's the monthly increment stuff that really gets to me. So.
Are you kind of the same way? Would you pay $200 for an MMO?
I think this is kind of like a general service thing. Like, if there was any type of TV service that gave me any show I wanted and I'd pay $400 a year, I would instantly pay it. Any amount. I would pay to get, so I didn't have to make those monthly payments, and it was so much easier, and I was guaranteed to have it. Yeah, absolutely.
$400 a year instead of just paying like 30-something.
If you gave me everything that I wanted, overall, compared to cable prices, I think it's a legitimate deal.
Okay.
But I think the same thing with the MMO, too. I think if it was something guaranteed and not a monthly payment that you get roped into, I think it would be a little bit more enticing.
And I feel obligated. So, like, we have, I play Heroes of the Storm, but I don't feel obligated to play it, and we hop in. But if I'm paying it monthly, I just always know I'm paying it monthly, And I have, like, family members who, they play an MMO, and then they switch, but they only play that one because that's what they're paying. Even if they're paying for two, they just keep switching, and you're sort of, it's like you're pigeonholed if you pay for it. Even the $50 isn't that much money. I just feel dedicated to it, and
that's weird because I would think that if you paid like $200 for an MMO for a year, you would feel more dedicated than if you paid just per month, right?
So, well, okay, I say $200 because an MMO, even if I pay $10 a month, knowing, well, I might pay this MMO for 20 months. I'm going to pay over, so the long-term cost will be fine. Even in the short term, I may only play for 4 months, but I wouldn't pay $200 for any other AAA game. But MMOs, are designed to go from 3 to 10 years,
That being said, I've never been concerned about any financial costs when I've been playing an MMO, but I've also never really wanted to get into those microtransactions because I always felt like I didn't. Is money? I don't know. I would spend like hours and hours farming something. Where like if I just paid $5, I would have got it. But I would spend like 20 hours farming something just to get it. It was kind of ridiculous, but it was the principle. It was crazy, but.
No, that makes sense. I don't know. I guess I like paying per month because I know I can quit. And at the same time, that whole monthly charge, you're looking at it, that charge is saying, well, I guess if it was a good company, they would say, all right, we have this big gap of money and we can budget this over the next few years. If they're going every single month, it kind of inspires them. We have to keep our numbers up. How do we keep our numbers up? Because people could just end it, right?
Right. Yeah, that's going to be a fear on their end that people will log. That's another thing, actually, I don't like about MMOs, in fairness. I don't like knowing I have content existing in other games that I don't just have access to. Like, I have to either go re-up my account, pay for it, to go re-access it again.
That was my phone.
That was your phone?
I thought it was R2-D2 or something. Your pants became a robot for a second.
I wanted to say a witty joke, but I couldn't think of one. I tried.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit about when we go into the future of video games and MMOs, we always have to go towards the subject of VR, right? Yeah. And so let's say there is a Sword Art online game, you dive straight into it, and you don't think about the real world at all, you just go straight into that game. How much are you willing to pay for that per year?
I don't know. Do I like it like a soda, or do I like it like cocaine?
Those can be interchangeable.
No, because if it was something that I legitimately love to such a level that would replace all my other entertainment, I'd pay a lot. Because, I'm like, well, I don't care about movies anymore. I just go in and go tower diving,
They could have movies in VR.
They could
We
separate
did that with the PS3. They had
with the PS3, right? When they had the home thing, and you could run in like to the PS Home.
Like a theater.
Yeah.
In the PS3 home system, and you could sit down in the theater and watch like previews for new games and new movies that were coming out and stuff. It was a little strange, sitting with a bunch of avatars in like a theater.
And then like a guy would run in and stand in front of you, and his avatar name would be blocking the trailer. It's like, oh, even in virtual reality, they still get in your way.
Yeah, actually, I did that with the Oculus when I first got it. That was a big thing, like people going in and being social and then watching a movie or doing something, and just random people with random avatars would show up, and it was pretty cool. I mean, the thing is, the technology for that is going to be hundreds of years away, I think. I don't think they can make the technology that immersive anytime soon in our lifetime, I don't think. But you know a lot more about this than I do, don't you?
Yeah. I don't want to put timelines on that, but the VR we know in 10 years is going to be the difference between like the PS3 and the Nintendo. And then in 20 years, it's going to be an incredibly much more immersive, qualitative experience than we can imagine. I mean, honestly, it's probably going to be like you're going to learn Atari and then jump to PS4. Like in probably a much shorter time than you think. Because if you look at how far it's come in 5 years, and you have all the biggest tech companies on Earth right now, with billions of research and infrastructure, are all trying. They know once VR hits right, because we've done that. When VR hits right, it's like, I say this like I've done cocaine, but it's like cocaine. It's an experience you've never had in your life, and this is fine. We're serious gamers across the spectrum, and we're not just gamers. We experience, we're all adventurous people, and we go out and experience the world. And there's something about that you're like, this is amazing, and you're like, yeah, which I think there's going to be serious like people who have like the equivalent of like drug problems with VR stuff. You're like, yeah, there's going to be problems.
Well, I mean, right now there's been issues with that with MMOs before. I mean, people just like
the people who've dropped dead in Asia.
Yeah. I mean, so it's there. I'm sure VR is going to amplify that a lot because that's easier to escape into that. But I mean, I don't think I've met a person who said, "Oh no, I wouldn't jump into VR if it was like Sword Art Online. I wouldn't do that." That sounds crazy. Everyone's on board.
Completely. I mean, there was even with the dev kits, I've seen videos of grandmothers like 80, 85, and they just put on the VR and they do like kind of basic stuff. And their reactions are so pure and amazing where they're like crying, and it's amazing. Like I think there was an Italian woman who was seeing her hometown, and she was able to like move through her hometown in it, and she's just like crying the whole time that it was so beautiful and immersive. And it's really primitive where we know it's going to be, and it's going to get there,
What about you?
Look really awkward. You're going to look really silly on the outside.
Who cares? I mean, what about you? Would you dive straight into it?
I would probably if everybody that I knew did, but the amount of time I would spend into it would probably depend on like where I am in my life. I think like when we played MMOs and we were really immersed into it, it's because that's what I needed at that time. I needed something to fill that space, and if I don't need anything to fill that space when this comes out, then I probably wouldn't dedicate myself into it. But like I said, I'm competitive, so maybe if everybody else is really into it and they're going crazy with it, I have to do it too to keep up the pace and everything. I don't know. It's hard to tell until it's actually launched.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. So, are there any closing statements about MMOs that you would like to make today, either one of you guys, before we leave, that you felt like maybe the audience of MogTalk here would like to know?
I would apologize for rambling and saying anything boring. Do I have any closing statements? I miss playing games with you all the time.
It's really depressing.
That's really it. I miss the people. I miss the game a little bit. Part of it has to do with Final Fantasy. I love Final Fantasy. I love everything about Final Fantasy. And I miss people. That's it. I miss gaming with people I love. That's it.
So let's just say everyone from our old group just decides, let's jump back on the Final Fantasy bandwagon. Some people are going to be like totally maxed out. Some people are going to be leveling up. Would that be a bandwagon you would jump on?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we've talked about. Of course, yeah, I'd be interested in it,
Trying to force me into the game.
Yeah, trying. Am I doing it?
I think I could.
Your answer said no. Both of your answers pretty much told me no. Come on, guys.
Okay, in fairness, because of my job and I travel so much, MMOs kind of terrify me because I can be gone for a month and I can come in and I come back in. I'm like you can't just game it for an hour.
And we're different people now. So when we played MMOs and we were together as a group, some of us have kids, some of us don't. Some of them have different job responsibilities than we did at those times. So it's a different kind of commitment than it used to be.
Okay, fair enough. Well, thank you everyone for watching MogTalk today. I'm sorry for all the horrible noises, crazy stuff in the background.
I love the horrible noises. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We missed the whale. The whale's not going on anymore.
With the whale?
It was like either a whale or a sound check or something.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. I can't wait to hear what this sounds like. I'm sure I'm gonna have maybe 50 hours of editing to do after Comic-Con this weekend. But thank you all for watching. I appreciate anyone who actually stuck around to watch this show. I hope it wasn't too cringeworthy. I hope it actually was a little bit, so it might be kind of enjoyable. Sometimes it's just fun to watch.
Yeah, I love cringeworthy. I know you don't as much.
It
we
depends.
would love to come back anytime you'll have us.
All right, next week we'll be having MogTalk here again at the Convention Center when nothing's at all is going on, and we'll take two. We'll do it, yeah.
And take 3 will be in jail because we probably aren't allowed in the building.
Yeah. But, I actually don't think there will be an episode next week. We'll see exactly what happens. Maybe I'll have enough cuts to actually make something happen. But we'll see how it all works out, guys. Hopefully all this is actually sounding okay. I have no clue because the panel just let out. So, anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you, Korara, for doing the camera work. And until next time, see you guys. Bye. No, we'll come over here. I'll throw it on you. Don't worry about it. You don't have to hold anything. You can hold it if you want to.
No.
Okay. And she's going to get us in like a frame or something here. Make sure you get like his entire thing too. He's more awesome than just the top part. Is that good?
Do you mind if I take your picture?
Yeah, go ahead and get his picture.
Oh, thank you.
All right, man. I gotta ask you. How many pictures have you taken today so far?
All right, over 100 easy.
Over 100. And how long have you been out here?
I think I got here at 6.
6?
Yeah, 2.5 hours.
Jeez. All right. So, I guess the other question I got for you is you say you don't talk a lot. So why are you not a talkative person?
Oh well, I mean, when the mic's in your face, it gets a bit strange and your brain gets muddled. Yeah.
Oh well, sorry, man.
When she does that 5-second thing, and suddenly really smart people can't seem to answer 3 questions.
You know, I kind of feel that too. Like I came out here, I have no clue what I'm doing at all. I'm just interviewing people because I think it's fun. And I go up to people, and it's really weird and nervous and awkward, but I don't care. It's still fun. And can you at least explain like what your idea and motivation was for your cosplay today?
Okay, the short story is the movie Black Swan.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you see a lot of cosplayers here, like girls who do Darth Vader. So you're thinking, well, shoot, I can get away with doing Black Swan.
Why the hell not, man?
Exactly. The longer story is when I was taking ballet growing up, this is the story they used to tell you to help you train your mind. That you had to be so obsessed with the character, you became the character, just like in Black Swan. So
that is absolutely fantastic.